Okay, we're going to do a quick walkthrough of what to do with this system once you unbox it. At the bottom, you have the two legs. These will remove from the bolts, and then that will be your bottom leg supports for the system. Moving up, your urethane is going to go into the inbound area over here. Your catalyst or hardener is going to go here. It's really important that if you're using isocyanates or moisture-sensitive catalyst that you're using the proper nitrogen blanket for it. Along with that, we're going to have a tube of iso oil for you. All you'll do is you're going to remove this tube, fill it up with oil, and then put it back onto this black piece. And then that's what we'll use as a air barrier. So as the pump shaft moves up and down, we don't get any oil, or we don't get any moisture that can get down into the catalyst system. So those are those two. Then we have solvent goes in. Now all of these pressures too, recommend using about 50 psi of solvent pressure. At first, you're going to use 50 psi of catalyst pressure. Your urethane pressure over here, this is what's going to dictate the flow rate for the entire system. So you might start off at 20 psi and then work your way up. But whatever you do on the system here on the A side, that's what's going to determine your total flow rate through the system. Now for air, this is what your spray gun's going to hook up to. Is the bottom side of this is going to go out to your spray gun. It's very important between this fitting and your spray gun that you do not have air regulation or a cheater valve on your gun. Your air regulation is going to go before this line. Now it can go connected onto here, or it can go at your wall, but you're going to regulate your mainline pressure before it gets to this airflow switch. To make sure that this airflow switch is working properly, when you trigger the spray gun, you can remove this line right here, and you want to make sure that air is coming out of this. If you don't have air coming out of this system, then it won't tell our resin enable valve to open up and allow you to spray. So again, we have to have this working, and it's important that we have the air regulation before the system, and then we go out afterwards. Now moving up to the top, our mainline air goes in right here, and we want that to be at approximately 80 to 100 psi. I typically use 85 psi as my air pressure, and that's going to be all your hookups on your system. Oh, the final hookup is off of the static mixer is going to go out to your fluid area of your spray gun. So that's all the connections. Now to get this system to work, it's quite simple. All we do is we're going to have the off-on button, and then to start off for the first time, you're going to put it into standby mode, and we're going to push F3, which is the prime button. Now, if you're not in standby mode, you'll see that it says system must be in standby, so we go to standby mode. This is where we would press resin, and what that will do is that will allow us to manually prime resin through the line. Once we have resin primed through the line, then we'll want to put solvent in the line, and then finally we push the hardener pump or the dispense pump button, and this is going to get you, so again, I can push the resin on, I have to turn it off. When I turn the hardener pump on, it's going to start the pump, so I'm not going to press that right now, but again, that's F2 to turn on the hardener pump. We put oil through this system to clean it and make sure everything was good before it came here, so we recommend that you use solvent in the line first, followed by your hardener material. Now, in the future, if you ever need to clean out this pump with solvent, there is dead spots where solvent and catalyst might mix up on the system. So we highly recommend that you disassemble this pump, which is quite simple. All you do is remove these 4 bolts on the bottom. All these pieces come apart. You would take apart we call them poppet valves on here. You would take these poppet valves apart and clean out the inner areas, and it's quite simple. On the back side of these, you have pressure transducers. You have a lower pressure transducer and an upper pressure transducer. And when I push the home button, those have to do with dispense pump inlet pressure and outlet pressure. We always want to see the inlet pressure about 5 to 10 psi greater than the outlet pressure. What determines the inlet pressure is your catalyst pressure. So when you have 50 on here, you might see somewhere around 45 to 50 psi for inlet pressure. Your outlet pressure is the pressure that the pump needs in order for it to mix properly with the A side. So your outbound pressure should be similar to your A side pressure on the system. Now, we set up some of the system, but again, we did the prime screen. When we go into the setup screen, your password to start off with is going to be a 1, and this gets you in to look at ratios, pot lifes, blow off time is just how long you can trigger the gun for. We get into calibration. You're going to want to calibrate the system. Once everything's loaded up, you're going to press the start button, which is F2, and then that's going to walk you through, and you're going to put in your calculated cc per pulse. You should be somewhere around 0.24 for the system. Just going to go through each of the screens. We kind of set them up for you ahead of time, but again, you can reference the manuals for these different areas. So they should be pretty set to go when you start up for the first time. Now I'm back at the home screen. When we want to spray, all we're going to do is go to the mix mode, turn off our atomization air, trigger the spray gun until you have material coming out of it. If you don't have material coming out, we actually have it set up to 60 seconds to get material out of the system. And if you still don't have material out after 60 seconds, you can actually change that. I'm going to go to Setup, press 1, and then I'm going to go to my settings screen. And do you see where it says Resin Enable Startup Time? That's when you would adjust it from 60 seconds if you need a longer period of time to get paint out. But if you get paint out in less than 60 seconds, then all you have to do is trigger the gun and start spraying. When you need to flush at the end of the day, turn the system to flush, open up your solvent valve, turn off your atomization air, and trigger your spray gun. That should be a good starting point for you, but if we need to talk in the future, Kevin Clark will get you more information.